Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Just Plus Scott Plus You show, where I don't even have words to describe it. So when I was talking to Debra Oakland about an idea I had for one of the shows that we wanted to do this season, it started around a quote. And the quote was, "There are two ways of spreading light, to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it." And depending on where we are in our own life, depending on the journey that we have had, and depending on where we are in this present moment, actually checking in with ourselves, mind, body, and soul, we may have a different answer day to day, which is one of my absolute favorite things about this quote. And it turns out that we have a super special surprise for you. And so more for that after that. Scott, it's time for the open.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Jess, take it away.
Scott, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing really, really well. And this is a show that I have been looking forward to since I first got to know Debra Oakland. And she just has a message that resonates with anyone who has even given the slightest thought about courage in life. So I'm just really terrific. How about yourself, Jess?
I'm also doing really well. And talk about serendipitous, okay? So look what I got in the mail today. I don't know if you can read that. It says, "Take what you need." And it's a little wooden box with that engraving on the top, and you open it up, and inside are these little coins. And they say things like love, or confidence, or inspiration. And I bought a whole bunch of them, and I have them on my desk, so when I need one, I can take one. When somebody's over and we're experiencing something, or there's some sort of an obstacle, they're going to get to take one too, and we're going to see what that turns into in terms of putting a new light on things. And that's kind of how I feel about our conversation tonight with Deb. When we think about living in courage, and we think about what it means to show up and to be present, and then in line with the season 2 of the Just Plus Scott Plus You show, where we're talking about the supreme unselfishness and putting yourself first, I start to think about decisions. And each one of those, take what you need, is a decision. So with that in mind, welcome, Deb Oakland. Yay!
Thank you, Scott and Jess, for having me on your show. You guys just are so incredible. I love both of you. I love the work that you're doing and the messages you're putting out in the world. So thank you. And it's really interesting that you brought your coins out, because I have this.
Oh, yeah, I can't read the words. What's it say?
Courage.
Oh, it says,
Courage.
thank you, courage.
And on the back, it says, "I'm not afraid. I was born to do this."
Yes.
Yeah. And I told the jeweler, that my friend who made this, that I'm going to wear this whenever I speak about courage.
You know, it's how you focus your mind, and there's no better way than to do something like that, to have a rock with inscribing or something that's metal or something like that. It just really allows one to focus one mind on, you create a space, and then you're able to walk into it.
Yes. And this, if I undo it and wear it long, it sets right over my solar plexus.
Ooh. Now, is that the place where you draw your most energy from? Is right around there? That's awesome. Yeah, me too. It's also the place I tend to get stuck the most. So I wiggle on the bottom and I wiggle on the top, but never in the middle.
Solar plexus dance.
Exactly, right? That's exactly what it is. Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of courage, and speaking of being here and making the decision to live in it, and now is the time. I'm so excited because everybody, you know what Deb said she would do for us? She said that when she came on our show today to talk about this, that we would be able to receive the gift of a reading from her upcoming book. So Deb, tell us a little bit about your book. Now, we know we're not going to hear some specific details because it is still in the making and you're still working on a lot of the pieces, but tell us what you can about the idea and the concept for it.
Okay, I'll do that. Well, the book is all about using we all love the movies. Everybody loves the movies. And we take away these incredible gems with us, and they make us feel things deeply, and they touch our emotions. And our life is a movie. It's an actual movie we're living in, and we're the writer, the director, the producer, we're the filmmaker, we're all of it. So the book is all in relation to the movies and how we live our life around these 7 concepts. And the first part is about decision. What you were thinking about, and as we were talking, we're like, wow, this really plays into our discussion. And then you asked me if I'd read a little section from the book.
Yeah.
And in the book, there are also 7 treatments, which are like scripts, but before they would actually be put into a script if you were, in a play or a movie. But I've written these 7 different scripts as well to go with the 7 concepts in the book. Great foundations to live your life by. Because of all the loss that I went through, I sat and I started thinking about what really pulled me through it as well as it did. And these are the 7 concepts that I'm sharing with people so that they can build a strong foundation, and it may help them recover from loss and grief, and just to make their lives joyful.
That is so beautiful. And for those of you just joining us, this is the Jess plus Scott plus You show featuring Debra Oakland of Living in Courage Online, where we are talking about the decision to be the light that you already are. All right, Debra, we are ready. Will you read to us?
Okay, sit back, relax. Do you have some popcorn? Okay, here we go. This is called Real, R-E-E-L, Life Decisions equals Creations. This little section I'm going to read to you. How content would you be if you were living a non-creative life? Creating is what we are here to do. Sharing our creations with others brings us fulfillment and happiness. Just think back to how great you felt the last time you accomplished something or created something. Maybe it was when you were a child, but you need to reclaim that feeling. You know how children feel. Like, oh, it's incredible. So maybe you can savor this, wrap yourself in it, embrace it. Choose to make the attainment of that feeling of accomplishment the focal point of your life's mission. When one accomplishment is completed, anticipate how good it's going to feel to achieve another creative endeavor. What great movie producer or director stops at one movie? As we make a conscious decision to do a thing, we feel fired up and excited. We learn to begin with the end in mind. Like any successful director, focus like a laser beam on one thing you desire to accomplish in your movie. This lowers the idea into your consciousness until you can see it, feel it, smell it, and taste it. Our senses are there to support and guide us. Learning to use and trust them creates an open door to our success. To our success. To expand mentally, physically, and spiritually, it's important that our creations are a blessing in and to all life. This is where we benefit from developing the proper soul orientation and self-control. It allows us to keep in mind that harmlessness is always a good objective. Rejecting negative outer influences that you've carried around most of your life is like a breath of fresh air. As a filmmaker, using single-minded focus, imagination, and determination, you will be able to star in and produce the most amazing movie you can dream up. Be willing to do whatever it takes to succeed in all you wish to accomplish, never giving up, because you deserve to live in the movie of your dreams. Take full responsibility for your life, and your life will reward you with even greater accomplishments. Preceding any accomplishment comes the desire and the decision to do. Engaging the mind and heart in all we wish to experience brings harmonious, balanced activity into the film we desire to develop, helping release limitation. Once one creative accomplishment is under our belt, it's easier to move on to another and another. And before long, you will be eager to pay it forward by sharing your film about the power of decision with those who notice your enthusiastic attitude in all you do. There's a magnetic power in decision that connects to our heart, which loves to bring us what we desire. By moving past limitation and being courageously inspired by an unlimited attitude and feelings, what we decide to do, to be, we will be. Our world is a creation. We are here to create our own worlds within the world, many smaller movies within the bigger moving picture of life. The proof of human accomplishment is visible everywhere. Whatever the heart believes, the mind conceives. None of us see the world in exactly the same way, yet we all create in unique ways that are of value and can be shared with others. If we all sang the same note, there would be no music. If we only knew one word, there would be no language. If there was only one color in nature, it would be devoid of contrast. If one can do it, anyone can. You and I have the ability to tap into our greatness, to define our individuality and unique gift of the soul. It is our responsibility.
Decide to do. Yes, thank you for that reading. That was I was like, ooh, the whole thing. You were reading, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm dancing, and this, oh yeah.
And that's some of the mellower part of the book.
Well, that is so condensed that I invite the viewers to return after the show to watch that one segment over again, because you've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about it, and you took something that was, humongous and compacted it down into those many words. So, and that's going to be the topic for the rest of the show, right, Jess?
It is, and we're going to go back to decide. One of the things that was at the beginning of what you said, before we even heard the word decision, when you were describing this, was anticipate the next great thing.
Yes.
Now, that's something that I think is counterintuitive to a lot of us, because we're taught how to plan, and we're taught how to know each milestone, and if we can't find those milestones, we got to do whatever it takes to get to that milestone, when it might not have been the right milestone to begin with. And so if so milestones are good, but at what point do we realize that we know that the next big thing is coming, and just because we can imagine it doesn't mean that's the way it's going to turn out, but we know it's going to be positive, and we know it's going to be impactful. And even as we're passing it by, we could go, oh, there it went, how cool, what's next?
The key word you said is we know.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think, if you think maybe it could happen, there's no maybe. You decide what's going to happen and you create it. But it's very important to stick to one creation at a time, where your attention can be fully placed on that particular thing that you wish to manifest. And then you can go on to another and another. Some people start out with parking spaces. Yay, parking angel. Thank you for my parking spot. Come on. You start with a little thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can move on to something bigger. Some people just start out with something huge, and it works. Whatever doesn't intimidate you too much, but really stick with it, because that power of decision is everything.
It really is. And what you're talking about is manifestation, whether it's the law of attraction or affirmation. They all have a place, and we could do them all, but we also only have to do one, or even part of one, or our own variation and creation of something that gives us that power to take. What it comes down to is action, is what I hear you saying. We can plan to do all of these things, but until we act, we're not actually choosing to move forward. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Well, I mean, at first it starts here. It's like a child creating an imagination. Our imagination is so important. And so your imagination feeds your feelings, and then your feelings turn into your actions, and then keeping your attention and your focus is so important on those things, and really knowing it's going to manifest perfectly, but allowing the unseen and the seen forces in the world to go to work for you, and trust that it's all in perfect order. It may not be the time that you expect it to be, but it will be exactly when your soul knows it needs to be delivered to you. And all through the book, I've taken all these big ideas and had to make it rather content rich, and just put them into small areas all through the book. So it's, I mean, I had a few people review it and they said, there's so much in there. Maybe you could write it one section and hold the whole book. And I said, no, this all has to be there. It has to. It's what came to me, and I'm the messenger.
But it sounds like it's one. You're walking your own talk. It's one item at a time. You're not throwing things out. You're saying, let's focus on this, and then the next, and the following. I wrote down a question that I'm going to ask right now. How in charge are we in terms of our own destiny? I mean, really, how much in charge are we?
As much in charge as we decide we will be. Again, you're back to the power of decision, and it's your life. It's your destiny. You get to choose exactly how things turn out, and there's things in our life that turn out unexpected, or things that we don't want to happen, but we have to understand whether we understand it or not on a human level. There's a different plan for it on a soul level, and those things that aren't so wonderful that happen to us, we have to say thank you for the lesson, and thank you for the experience of whatever we experienced with whatever it was, a business, a person, a family member, a pet. Appreciate every moment that we had or happened, and say thank you for the lesson. And I don't understand it. I don't have to, but I know it's okay.
Now, can I jump in, because I think that there's a clarification, and that we might, because there was a time in my life where I would have listened to what you said and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that, and it still didn't turn out what I wanted, so I had this lesson to learn. And because of our conversation yesterday, Deb, I woke up this morning in this space, and I was on the elliptical, and we have the shaking machine. I don't know what it's called, and I'm on the shaking machine, and I was like, there's a difference between trusting what is happening is the right thing and letting things happen to us, and that we can trust in the process, but if we don't take an active role, we actually are letting things happen to us. And sure, it's going to be in that moment because we've made the decision to let it happen to us, instead of actively stand up and say, okay, I'm here. This is the path I'm on. Here's what's going on. And I may not know where to go, but I'm here, versus sitting back and going, maybe it'll pass.
Oh, no, that passive, no, you have to take an active role in this creation.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to sit there and say, this is what I desire. This is what I want. This is the outcome that I want. If it morphs into something else, I'm open to that.
And openness is good.
Open.
Yeah.
You have to stay open,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe there's something better coming to you that you can't see, and it wants to get there. And when I find things are very difficult, I move out of the way. If it's easy, it's like my soul saying, yep, you're in the right direction, keep on moving. And if the obstacles are just too big, for me personally, it's not worth my time and effort. I know that I'm supposed to be going in another direction, or taking a left or a right at that road where it's crossing, and I have to trust that I am connected enough with myself and my soul and my spirituality, my meditations, and everything that I do, that I know which way to go. Am I going to turn right, or am I going to turn left?
For those of you just joining us, this is the Jess plus Scott plus You show, and we are talking to Deb Oakland of Living in Courage Online about decision and showing up to be the light that you already are. Thanks for being here tonight.
So it sounds to me as if it's not as if we live in a world where there's a choice of decisions or an absence of decisions. Regardless of what happens, we are making decisions that instead, and if you could elaborate on this, depending upon our orientation, our relationship with the decision-making process, we get to be send us in a more, what we, at the end of the day, a more desirable outcome or more desirable life. And if we're less skillful, then we might end up in a place that, quite frankly, is less desirable. Is that kind of
Yes, I mean, if
along
you're
the line?
fear all the time and you're negative and you're just blaming everybody else for your outcome and for your life, you know, the blame game's over. There's no time for that anymore.
You're still making your destiny. It's just that in that case, the destiny that you have made is the fruits of the blame game, as you put it.
Right. I mean, your subconscious, you know, it says yes to you. Whatever you say, I am healthy, I am joyful, I'm abundant, and I use abundance instead of money because it's all inclusive. Abundant. Yes, yes, yes. People say they're fat, they're ugly, they're broke, they're blah blah blah. Yep, okay, that's what you get. If that's what you want, that's what you're going to be brought.
You used the phrase soul orientation. Could you elaborate on that, please, Deborah?
The soul orientation?
Soul orientation.
Our soul is just, I mean, it's who we are. This soul is this expansive part of ourselves that is always there. Here, there, everywhere. Whether we're in this physical garment, our soul remains. And it's this magical space that we get to interact with and to align our orientation of our life's desires and wishes with. It's so beautiful. It's just, I mean, your soul is just magnificent, and you can either align with it or you can misalign with it. And you can have an easier life, you can have a joyful life, you can move forward in peace and harmony, or you can decide to not be in alignment, not connect with the soul on that kind of alignment and that level. And it's like, okay, well, I'll wait over here while you're busy being miserable.
Yeah, if I were to say that in a different way, when we show up in life, we're either showing up and it's draining and we're giving away energy, or we're like maintaining the status quo and we're just kind of here. We're not really, we're not giving anything away, but we're not receiving anything either. Mm-hmm. And then there's this idea of being open and receptive to where, like what you were talking about earlier, when you are in alignment, you've got this, it's easy and everything makes sense and you know that it's worth your time, and there's actually reinforcement in each of those areas. We have to learn for ourselves and for our own environment and how our inner critic and our heart and head work to figure out what those are. So when I think about some of those from your experience and the things that you encountered while you were putting together the ideas for each of the concepts in your book, when we think about decision, what can a starting point be to go from a draining place or a status quo place to a place of richness, a place of abundance, where it can be easier and we can start to learn? This is the cue for what feels, it not only feels good, it is good. It is that soul alignment or orientation.
Right. And because we are energy.
Yes.
That is what we are. We are light. And we can, again, align with that with our soul or not align with that, like you were saying. But I think, like, if you see someone that's not happy, they're just not happy, they don't want to see you happy. It really irritates them. You can't just say to somebody, be happy, and they're going to be happy. It doesn't work that way. They have to start with the decision that maybe they'll take a little baby step. And every day, they'll do one thing that they enjoy in their life. A lot of people don't have things they even do in their day that they enjoy. You know, maybe one thing that they do that makes them happy. And that builds momentum. Or sitting and thinking, I always tell people, if you want to change the way you're thinking and you feel kind of down, a good decision to make is say, I choose peace. I choose peace. Just chant it. especially if someone's around you that's not happy and is saying something negative, then you can just, while they're talking, blah, 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 you can just, I choose peace, I choose peace, I choose peace. And it changes the energy even. Sometimes they'll just go away because they're not feeling you.
Cool. Okay, so you were talking, and Scott, before you jump in, this made me think. Now, it made me think for two reasons. One, because they're right here. And two, because we were talking about how children are building their imagination and how they show up and they move through these emotions very quickly. And they're not discerning if they're hurting anybody's feelings. They're like, this is not for me, or this is for me, and they stop doing it or they continue doing it. So what if, in addition to having some sort of a chant, when you were talking about, the people who aren't happy, I know a lot of people who they get to the end of the day and they go, well, I never got to such and such. And then they get to the next day and I never got to such and such. Well, that requires a priority change. Why not get some gold stars? Why not make yourself a little chart and every single day put that first and give yourself a gold star? Sounds silly and it sounds novel, but it might just be what we need.
We need to reward ourselves.
Yeah.
We deserve to reward ourselves.
We do.
Thing that we accomplish.
Yes. And I think also some of it would be is we don't typically reward ourselves with stars or stickers. We reward ourselves in something that is kind of an indulgence, right? An extra piece of chocolate or a piece of food or that kind of thing, which can kind of, it might work for you, but it also might not work for you. Me, it's going to be stars over food any day. Food is a dangerous game. Maybe unless you're cooking or Scott's cooking. You guys are both pretty good.
Yeah, cooking.
Yeah.
That's a happy place for me.
Yeah.
Yes. But look at children. When they're little, their imaginations, imagine the movies that they can put together and the things that they come up with and they think of. I mean, they're so outside the box. And they say, like that TV show, kids say the darndest things. The things that they say, they're just constantly, their brains are going, and we quit doing that. We get so busy with life and so many things going on. We're trying to make a living, or we're in school and we're trying to learn, or being certain things being programmed into us that will really change the course of our life, unfortunately. So when we're older, we can say, wait a minute, now I get to decide how my life is going to go. This is my life. I get to choose. And I am responsible for my life, and I can't blame anybody for what's happening to me, but I can take responsibility and say, okay, let's make things happen. And you can just start my whole book's about all of this. So I'm excited for it to come out.
I was amused when you talked about, choose peace, choose peace, choose peace, and you were talking about kids and their imagination. I can remember growing up, and there was a cartoon character, I think his name was Sad Charlie or something like that, and the cartoon, he always had a cloud over him, and he would say, oh dear, dearie me, oh dear. And one day I scared myself because I thought, what would happen if I did that? And so I went around for, I don't know how long, probably it's 10 or 15 minutes, but it feels like a half a day. And I felt so terrible at the end of just saying, oh dear me, oh dear, in a forlorn voice, that I shook myself from it. But at that time I thought, man, that's really powerful. And I challenge anyone listening, if you really want to test the theory, just go around for a half a day with as many negative statements and affirmations as you possibly can, and you too probably would be scared.
Mm-hmm. The thing that's the biggest that's really interesting to me that I catch more now is when I say something contradictory or when I receive something that's contradictory. So I get told I'm obnoxiously smart, or I am dangerously thoughtful, or something goofy. And I say goofy, and I'm using that because somebody is using that as a term of endearment. But I have actually moved into this place where I consider that really limiting, and I actually have to take a minute and go, get rid of the first word and hear the second word and repeat that in my head a few times to get the true meaning of what they're saying, because they're saying it with the greatest love. And I can't receive that from them in its true form because it's not true for me.
Right. And words are powerful, and our brains all function slightly differently, and we perceive things differently. So
Yes.
that's why it's always good to step back and take a look at it and what is the intention and how is it meant, because
And it's huge because, yeah, we have to show up for each other too. And we have to go, oh, that was love. So I'm going to receive that as love.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good segue into something I really wanted to ask you tonight, Debra, and that is, you talk about listening to your inner voice, and we all recognize how important that is. But what about other voices? What about the parent to the child, spouse to spouse, spiritual guides, business coaches, mentors, and those sort of, where do other voices come in?
I find, and I write about this in my book, if you are working with a coach or a spiritual mentor of any kind, I always said, if they're really, really powerful and good at what they do, they will guide you back to you, to the answers that are inside of you, and teach you to listen to those answers and to find those things that you need within yourself to live from the inside out versus the outside in. Yes, you may need them to get to that point, but a good mentor, a good coach, a good parent, you will lead people back to self, back to the inner power that sometimes we give away, that love, wisdom, and power that we are, that comes in through and out from us. And to be able to connect with that is one of the most powerful things that you can ever experience, because then you can create everything from the inner spaces and places that we are meant to create from in a powerful way, not in a flighty kind of a way.
Yeah, I know. That's what, that's a surprise answer. I hadn't anticipated that answer, and that's very much of a blessing of an answer. I'm reminded of Hildy, who is Alan Cohen's spiritual leader, who once said, a spiritual path will bless you twice. Once when you step on it, and then a second time once you step off of it, because you no longer need it. And that sounds a little bit like what you've just been talking about.
Mm-hmm. I like Alan Cohen's work. Yes, he's great. I've met him a few times. It's like it's in here. Everything we need is right here. And we can get to a point in our life when we don't have to go out there for what we need. It's here. But most people aren't at that point. I mean, that's a powerful point to be at.
And is this true in all cultures, or is it that there are certain cultures or certain countries or certain periods of time where people are more attuned to themselves, and other times? And how does that play out? Or have you even thought of it in those terms?
I think it's an individual thing, because look at all the different cultures and the countries all over the world. If you look at the world, really, is it any better than it was in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s? There's certain aspects of it that have not improved. There are people that just don't wake up, and they're still judging and blaming and using religion and war and all these things to make everything okay that they do. And it's like, no, everything's here. If you're out there talking about love does not do certain things. Divine love and light, unconditional love, there's certain things that does not associate with. So what are you aligning with? What are you aligning with?
And that's, I think, a good start to go back to the creativity piece. Is it's really hard to create when we're not aligned with what we know to be true in each cell of our body, not necessarily what we know to be true in our head. Because I think of the two, for me, at that cellular level, that's where the energy is. That's where we are really fully connected to the universe around us. And if we get really good at listening to that, our brain can still have its little chatter, because it's always good to have a second set of eyes and maybe a little bit of a devil's advocate sometimes, but mostly to go, yeah, okay, that makes sense, because we can train our little guy to do that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're thinking about creativity, I'm going to take a quick segue, because the conversation we are having about creativity a little bit earlier is a slightly different than the take of our shout about tonight, which is also about creativity. So take a minute, sit back, watch this, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color, but there's more than just for me, so gonna share it with another.
When we start strong, we have the ability to own the moment. And sometimes when we feel like we have the least connection with ourselves or the world around us is the time we need to be the strongest. And that really requires courage. And so how do we find courage? How do we find the courage that we need to start strong in whatever we're doing? It could be a conversation. It could be responding to an article. It could be creating something new. It could be getting on the phone with a client. It could be calling a client you really don't want to be talking to. So when I'm sitting here talking with you, and we're just kind of hanging out like pals, and you get to hear all of this information, there's got to be stuff going through your head. And sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, Jess, that's cool. And sometimes you're like, no, Jess, that is not cool. So I'm wondering, how could you test your comfort zones? How could you spend some time and think about and celebrate the courage that you have that you don't even know you have? And the way that I would know to do that is to go visit Phil Boyer's website, philboyer.com, and check out his book, Coloring Outside the Lines. It's a short read with a lot of exercises. So it's unexpectedly more time-consuming than you would think. Yet, what will come out of that book, what will come out of that time, is a better understanding of yourself and an opportunity to really celebrate what sets you apart and see through the eyes of others what you can do to reach your full potential. And in the end, leaving our comfort zone isn't a bad thing at all. It is something that we can learn from. And we learned how to color inside the lines. And I would challenge you to color outside the lines. So take a gander, look at the book, think about some of the stuff, read or view some of the interviews that Phil has done. And then I want to know. I want you to ping me. I'll drink some tea. You bring your beverage of choice. And let's talk about it. Let's celebrate courage together.
Like I won $1 million, like a kid to pay dirt. Gonna smile from ear to ear, the kind that makes your face hurt. And we'll laugh, jump, sing loud, not afraid to shout about being happy, living it out. Take a look and see a beautiful morning.
Who knew? Creativity. But let's move past the creativity piece and back to, it's all about what we know without having to think about it. And I know, Deb, that you've got included in this because the idea is around movies and all of these different things and how movies are created. What about and we were talking a little bit about scripts and how we talk to each other or how we look at the world and how we show affection, how we receive that, all of those words. And then Scott, you were talking about some of the things, go around and say negative things and see what that does to your mood versus going around and saying positive things and seeing what that does to your mood and how people interact with us. So, tell us, Deb, in your book, you've got these scripts, these movie treatments. Tell us a little bit about the additive value, and do you have one that you could share with us tonight?
Sure, yes. If you would like to. It's just, I want people to really get what we were just talking about, how you walked around saying that negative thing, and it felt like a half a day, and it just feels horrible, that negative feeling. And some people are just used to that. They don't even know what it feels like to feel good. So I wanted to add scripts, one that has a positive outcome and one that does not. So you can see the difference and how that makes you feel when you read it. Because these are about people and different situations in their life, and they're all made up, except this first one on the power of decision is my own true story. So I'll redo that one. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
This is real, R-E-E-L 1. My husband Cody answered a call from the hospital at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning. News a mother never expects to hear. There had been a car accident. My son had died. First, disbelief. This can't be happening. You never expect to lose a child before your own life is complete. Please, God, make this go away. Shock sets in, indescribable pain permeates my entire being. I had been through so much loss already. Now I have just lost my only child and am heartbroken. In a state of shock, feeling disconnected and out of body, I have to decide how to begin handling this news. Family is calling, people are trying to connect out of concern and love. I want to sit and be still. No, that doesn't feel good. I need to get up and move around. Go somewhere. No, that doesn't work either. What to do, where to go, how to function. Cody's my rock, but he's in shock as well. How do we get through this loss? How do I comfort us both? I can't, not now. Depression sets in. Unable to function on any level, the days drag on to become months, weeks, months, and years. Life has lost its luster. There seems to be no hope of feeling normal again. Tears flow endlessly. Guilt, self-pity, and hopelessness become close friends. My marriage is lifeless, and I see no hope of it changing. My greatest fear is to be hurt again by loving so deeply. Cody can no longer live in this sad and broken marriage. As he takes his leave, he is wishing it would have all turned out differently. It could have all turned out so differently. I'm happy to say it did. Read on. And I began the story again. And as I go through shock, and I want to sit, be still, Cody's my rock. He's in shock as well. How do we get through this? We comfort each other as we talk about how to get through this loss. I ask myself an important question. What would my son, who loves me as I love him, what would he want most for me? I say to my husband, knowing the love we all carry for each other is on a deep soul level, the only answer is that he would want us to live a happy life, celebrating his life as a gift, grateful for the time we had together. I define my life by handling this loss with courage, strength, and peace. My marriage to Cody grows stronger and we become more resilient together. I realize there is a different way of responding to hardships and that we can change our perspective from within. Both Cody and I rely on a strong foundation of inner power that houses our courage and strength. Knowing this is the way to celebrate and honor my son's life. We carry him in our hearts as a precious gift. I embrace life with peace, gratitude, and compassion, now going out into the world, silver lining, helping others through the process of loss and grief.
So, Debra, what is the imperative of your life?
The imperative?
Mm-hmm.
To live in joy, living from the inside out, and helping others, sharing what I've learned and the foundations that have kept me strong may serve someone else, and just to be the best me I can be and share that with the world.
And this is born of the grief that you've felt and the loss that you've suffered, and you've turned that into something that is shining so brighter than it could have otherwise.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would never have done this. None of this would have happened if I hadn't gone through those 6 years losing all my family members, my immediate family members like that, and both my children. I wouldn't have had the nerve to do this. You know, I said, I've got nothing to lose. I'm not a trained writer. I don't care. I'm just going to start writing about courage, living in courage, and what'll happen, what'll come out of it. I don't know, but I have to do this. I have to. I can't stop myself.
Well, looking forward to the completion of your book. And in the meantime, you have other things that you have published and put out that are a fulfillment of your imperative, I would say.
Thank you.
Jess?
From a totally different perspective, I really am honored because it takes what we learn and how we choose to receive it and what we decide, going back to the decision, what we decide to do for ourselves. And one of the things that I really love is your willingness to share, Deb. Another thing that I really love is that you're setting an example that we can all follow, and life is not easy. And it doesn't matter who we are. Life is not easy. Now, there's a place of joy and ease of moving through things that is different than an easy life, I would say. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk about that. We may have to have you come back to just talk about that, because I think we could have an entire show about that. And what you are doing with livingencourageonline.com is amazing. The things that you share and write, the things that your guest bloggers share and write, I learn something new with every post that you share. And so it's great to see where this is going and what you are doing. And tell us, besides livingencourageonline.com, where else can we connect with you?
Oh, I'm all over social media. I'm on Google+, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, About Me, you name it. I'm all over the place. And on my website, I have my monthly newsletter that you can sign up for, and I have a guest blogger come on each month, and it's really exciting to get to know all these wonderful people you've been on as a guest and written article, and I love sharing that space with other people.
Thank you again, Deb, for joining us. Scott, what an amazing conversation. This 45 minutes went by really fast, and I think it gives us a lot to talk about, because when we think about that quote, and I'm going to go back to it here so that we've got it, there are two ways of spreading the light, to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. And Edith Wharton is the one who said that. And here's what I wrote down based off of our conversation. We are all connected. And in that connection, in that energetic connection that we have, supersedes what makes up our brain, how our brain keeps our bodies alive, and really allows us to connect through our heart and through our actions beyond this. So if I were to say, what does that quote that we started with for the decision to be the light that you already are, and the quote from Edith Wharton, I would say that let's protect our light. Let's spread our light, and then let's make sure and reflect the light that we see in others, because we can be the candle and we can be the mirror. Maybe not at the same time when we're focusing on one thing at a time. Totally agree, Deb. Yet, at the end of the day, we can be both, each in its own time and each in its own path. The Just Plus Scott Plus You Season 2, the supreme unselfishness, putting yourself first. Conversations occur with amazing people like Debra Oakland of livingencourageonline.com, who are passionate about personal and business development. Grow, learn, and share your comments with us. Thank you to Scott from the Scott Treatment, which businesses capture the potential and power of video through post-production. And I'm Jess Dewell, working with small business leaders that want to be so far ahead in your industry that you're setting the standard. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Just Plus Scott Plus You show, where I don't even have words to describe it. So when I was talking to Debra Oakland about an idea I had for one of the shows that we wanted to do this season, it started around a quote. And the quote was, there are two ways of spreading light, to be the candle